Hello everybody and welcome back to the Leeds Lens. Apologies if you saw the first one. I'm not sure what happened. The mic just decided it just didn't want to work, so that's fantastic. Bit of troubleshooting later and we're back. So yeah, let's get into the show today. We've got quite a bit actually to get into today. Like I said on the first one, we've got a Sky update revealing exactly what Leeds United are going to do in the January transfer window. So we'll talk a bit about that. We're also going to talk about Okafor, who's been left out of the Swiss national team, and why actually that might be a benefit for Leeds United. I'll talk a bit about that. We're also going to talk a bit about Tanaka. He's been speaking out. We've seen this a bit already, haven't we? With Biol speaking out about lack of game time. Now we've got Tanaka doing it. I think this might be a sign, people. When they're away from Leeds United on international break, naturally they're more free to talk on what they want to do and talk about sort of everything that's going wrong potentially at the current club while they're away from the club. And finally, if we get round to it, I'm not sure we will, but if we do get round to it, we are going to discuss Ramazani and Joseph's loan situations, because I've got a bit of a sort of, I'm a bit frustrated about what's going on with them. So I'm going to talk a bit about that as well when we get round to it. But yeah, let's get into the first story actually, and let's talk about the Sky Sports, and let's see what they've been saying about Leeds United's transfer window. So I'll get the tweet up now. As you can see, it says, Leeds United will look way up. Leeds United will look to sign a winger in January after their deadline day move for Fulham winger and Wales winger Harry Wilson fell through. Wilson is still on their list of potential candidates. Yes, that is what's been said by Sky Sports. But it's actually nice to see, because obviously we've seen the likes of Football Insider talk about this. We've seen other outlets talk about this. A lot of outlets have been talking about Leeds United's double swoop or this and that. But it's nice to see actually a really credible source in Sky Sports talking about this as well. Do I think it's going to be Harry Wilson though? Possibly not. My honest feeling with Harry Wilson is that's probably dead in the water. Although there will be really good options, I think, for Leeds United in the January transfer window. And I'll talk a bit about why that is later. But what I first want to say is about this sort of January transfer window. When I look at it, right wing is perfect. I've said this on the channel a number of times. If I look at where Leeds United need, if I look at the squad at this moment in time in every single position, what do Leeds United actually want? I think it's got to be a right winger in it. I look at sort of the rest of the team, and I think in every other position we've got a really strong player. Yes, we don't have the great depth. I think that's something we can discuss. But actually, I think the starting player in every position is really, really strong. It's just a shame that actually on the right-hand side at this moment in time, I don't think sort of Nonto's put a massive case forward to start, although I would start him. I don't think neither is James, and obviously he's injured as well. And I definitely don't think Arrington's put a case forward for me to start on that right-hand side. But as I said, I do think there is going to be options for Leeds United in the January transfer window. I'm going to talk about that, why that is now, by the way. I think the reason why, I think this hasn't been mentioned enough, I think the reason why it's going to be easier for Leeds United in this January transfer window than normal is because of the World Cup. Because when we look at what Leeds United are going to do in the January transfer window, I think part of my worry going into this window has always been that actually, with Leeds United's PSR position, we're not going to be able to do deals, and all the deals we're going to look at are going to be loan with obligations or loan with options to buy, which is fine. But if that is the situation and we are looking at loan with obligations or loan with options to buy, naturally we're going to limit our market. And that's been my main concern. All right, fine, we're going to be able to get a few deals in, but potentially other clubs are going to get the better deals and the better available wingers in the likes of maybe Wolves who might spend, the likes of West Ham who might spend. However, the big bonus for Leeds United this window, as I said, is the World Cup coming up. Because the World Cup means that players naturally are going to want to leave on loan to get football, to get into the national team squads, which should not normally be a situation. I mean, you don't have to look further than Kobbie Mainoo at this moment in time. I don't think we're going to sign Kobbie Mainoo. But if you use him as an example, obviously at this moment in time, he's not getting the game time at Man United. He wants to go out on loan and play more minutes because he wants to get in that World Cup squad. And he will not be the only one. There'll be loads of players playing for top clubs at this moment in time who in normal seasons would just think, oh, I'll chance it, see if I get a few minutes. We might win some silverware. But this year, they can't do that. They cannot do it this year because, of course, this year is the World Cup year. So they want to play to get in the squad. You've seen it from, I think, the reason Grealish is at Everton now, and he went to Everton rather than going to a higher level team was obviously because of the January transfer window as well. So as I said, I think this is a huge positive for Leeds United. Is the sound actually working this time? Yeah, it is working. We're all good. So yeah, I think that's something that I haven't seen online mentioned regarding the January transfer window. But as I said, especially when you're looking with loans and with options and loan with obligations, there should be opportunities for Leeds United in this transfer market to go and do stuff. And even if it's not a loan with an option or loan with an obligation, it's just a straight loan. Again, they should be able to do for Leeds United in the January transfer window, because a load of players are going to be banging on the door of their sort of sporting directors, managers, saying, if you're not going to play me, I want to go out on loan because I want to get in this squad. As I said, like you've seen with Kobe Mainoo. I even remember an interview with Conor Cody. I don't know if people remember that. And he was saying about his move, I think, when he moved to Everton, I believe. And he was saying that year, normally, when Wolves saying you're not part of our plans, I'd have just stayed there, fought for my place, got him back in the team, Bob's your uncle. I couldn't do it that year because it was a World Cup year and I needed to play to make sure I was in that World Cup squad because it's my last one. And again, there will be so many players. Maybe it's not the last World Cup like it isn't with Kobe Mainoo, but there'll be loads of players who naturally need minutes, who will look to do stuff, who will look to push out more than ever of the clubs to obviously play for Leeds United. Not play for Leeds United, but potentially play for Leeds United, but to obviously get a move so they can actually compete and get into the World Cup squad. So I think that is not it's not what anything that Leeds United have done well. It's not, maybe they've looked at the start of the season. It's not anything Leeds United's particularly done well, but just the state of where football is right now. Naturally, that's going to be a huge positive for Leeds United. So, a bit of positive news there. Anyway, let's move on and talk about Noah Okafor. Yeah, I don't know why I just put a random picture up of him, but we'll work with it. We'll work with it. Something slightly different from just looking at the normal screen. So the Noah Okafor situation, I'm not getting too much detail because you've probably heard of it, but basically there's been a bit of a raft between him and his sort of World Cup manager, or not World Cup manager as such, that he's the Swiss manager. There's been a bit of sort of discourse. I think they're not obviously best pals. And he's getting continued to be left out of the Switzerland team. He's not been in this cohort of being picked by the Switzerland manager as well. And there's clearly a blockage there for whatever reason, something that Okafor's quite clearly done. But as I said, I don't want to talk about that too much. What I want to talk about is, this is a huge benefit for Leeds United, by the way. A huge benefit, because Okafor is a player that we know has got an injury prone. He's got injury problems. We've seen that. We've looked at his career. One of the reasons when we signed him that I think there was so much sort of a riff-raff in the fan base was because obviously Noah Okafor's injury record is a concern, and I think that will continue to be a concern. So the fact that he can have now another basically near on 2 weeks off without playing first team football and not going and playing in Switzerland in meaningless friendlies and maybe playing, I don't know, some high-class football when naturally you got chances of injuries. I think this is perfect for Noah Okafor's development. Absolutely perfect. And then I also look at sort of, because usually on an international break, for anyone that doesn't know, it's because half the squad isn't there and half the squad is there, because naturally some players are going out on international duty. Leeds United have got loads, Tanakas, Goodmansons, etc. The list goes on. But because a lot of them are leaving on international duty, that first week especially is very quiet, and it will be very quiet around Thorpe Arch. So the way that managers usually go about it is, rather than doing team sessions like they normally do, because half the team isn't there, they don't do team sessions and they do individual programs for that first week. And I think when I look at sort of what has helped Okafor in the past, I think these individual programs have been hugely beneficial to Okafor. Like, just remember the last international week we had, and obviously when he got that break, I remember him talking in a sort of press conference, an interview about sort of his ability to basically work on sprints, and that was a huge thing. And I think since the international break, when he's managed to get himself into the team, because obviously the international break was after the Newcastle game, so he came back for the Wolves game, scored instantaneously. I was at the Fulham game, which again, it was his best game, and then obviously we went into the Wolves game and he scored, and his performances have increased sort of there on out. So again, I'm looking at what Okafor can achieve by not going into duty. Yes, he's not going to be playing and getting injured, which you'd hope, unless they start snapping each other in training like they do with Jan James. But for the most part, you would expect they are not going to be playing too much. But the main benefit, I think, of all of this is that, as I said, we should not get injured, but also he should be able to do an individual training program. And again, can we improve parts of the game? Can we improve his shooting? Can we improve his physicality further? When he's got a whole training plan and when Farke's sort of nailing down and can focus on individual programs to help the squad. And I think this is massively beneficial because a lot of Premier League players will not get that because they will be going out on international duty naturally. So the fact that we've got a player there who probably should be playing international duty, but because he's had a bit of a riff-raff as such with their manager, isn't going on international duty. I think this is a huge benefit for Leeds United. Huge benefit. As I said, we don't really, I know Ampadu and Rodon and sort of Darlow playing tonight against England, which is fine, but do we really want them playing? I don't, personally. I'd rather them be wrapped up at Cotton Wool at Thorpe Arch, in my personal opinion. So like I said, that is a huge positive for me, and definitely that way. So if they can keep battling and keep falling out, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Anyway, let's move on to the next story of today, which is, of course, Tanaka, because he's been talking. He's been talking to Goal, the sort of Japanese Goal, so a bit of translating needed today. But he's been basically talking about, to summarise, not to go into all the details and all the quotes, because I think that bores you guys, but basically he's been saying he's disappointed with the game time. And obviously this has started with Yakubiol. He said something similar, which is fine. I think we understand why players are wanting to play it. And I think even from Tanaka's standpoint, potentially I understand it even more than Yakubiol, because with Tanaka, he's obviously been promised he's going to sort of have a year in the Championship, which I don't think he wanted to have. And then if he gets us to the Premier League, he'll have his chance in the Premier League. And he gets us there, and then we go, actually, you're not playing. And to be fair, there's probably other players in the squad like that, the likes of Joel Pro, I think a few others as well. But I think with Tanaka especially, for me, Tanaka's potentially our best player. I think in terms of a sort of individual creator and that football IQ. And what do I mean by football IQ? I mean sort of like his first touch, his decision making, etc. on the ball. He's probably the best in the squad. So I think he does have I do think he has a right to get into this Leeds United team. And I think I can see why he's frustrated, because when you put the work in that he'll have put in last year to get his chance in the Premier League, I can see why he's frustrated. So yeah, I know people are going to be probably a bit frustrated with this and like, why are they talking about against Farke and why are they saying this and why are they frustrated? I don't actually think that. I actually don't think that at all. I think with Tanaka, I maybe have a different opinion to you guys. I actually am glad that we've got BL coming out and saying I'm disappointed in my game time, because I think I'd be concerned if they didn't want to play. I think you don't want players that don't want to play. The fact that these players are coming out and going, yeah, I am disappointed. Because part of it as well is, bearing in mind, when they're saying this, and Biol said this, and Tanaka said this, and it's quite refreshing, really. They've all said that, yes, we're disappointed, but we're happy with the team's results, and we want what's best for the team, which is really important to bear in mind. Jagibab says, I thought Tanaka got injured for a few games. Yeah, he did. He did his MCL, didn't he? And he did MCL in the Arsenal game, and he missed the Fulham away game, did he? I was in the bench for that. He definitely missed the Newcastle game for sure. So I think that's part of the reason why he's come out of the team, because naturally we know with Daniel Farke, when a player gets injured and they don't usually come straight back in, they take a while unless it's his absolute favourites, the likes of course, Ethan Ampadu. So yeah, I think my honest opinion is I think this is always going to happen. I think when players go on international duty, naturally they're going to get asked questions. Why are you not playing for your club side? And I think they've answered honestly. They're frustrated by it, but they are happy with the team's results. And I think that's fair enough. As I said, I wouldn't want the opposite. I wouldn't want them going, oh, I don't really want to play. I'd rather not play for Leeds United. That would be a worst case scenario. So I don't actually think Tanaka, should we get him up one more time? I don't actually think Tanaka's I don't think it's too bad, if I'm being honest. I think this will probably be overstated. And I would hope that Daniel Farke doesn't see massive issues with this either. I think I'd be quite concerned if he did, if I'm being totally honest. Anyway, let's move on. We've actually got through quite quickly this show so far. Maybe it's because I thought this is a second version round, so I almost know what I'm going to say. But yeah, let's get into the final story of today. And this is something that I've thought about for a while. And to be honest with you, it's not just something I've thought about for a while. I've thought about it since the summer transfer window, because I'm a bit concerned about this, and I think it's something to have a little moan about. So we might have a little moan. And that is, of course, Ramazani and Joseph. Do you like this thing, by the way, when I keep changing? I don't know. It's like a new thing I'm trying. But anyway, regardless of the point, Ramazani and Joseph. So why I want to talk about these two, I know we've got Schmidt on loan, I know we've got Vober on loan, but I think these two of all players are two that I'm hoping can do well in La Liga and then come back and get into the first team. I don't ever see it with Schmidt, in my humble opinion. And I almost think somehow Wober's bridges have been burnt in a roundabout way. I don't think Verber's ever going to be a mainstay in this Leeds United team. Whereas actually, I'm not convinced Matteo Joseph maybe ever will be. But Ramazani, we know he's got the quality, and we know he's got the pedigree that he could come back into this Leeds United team. And yeah, where I'm at with this, and sort of what the point I want to get to is that I'm slightly concerned with it. And I was concerned in the summer. I think we've sent these players too high. I think we've gone in too high. And if you look at sort of what a loan should bring for a player and why we're sending these players out on loan fundamentally, it's so they can get more experience playing at the top level, and then hopefully we can transition them into the team, because they're not getting enough minutes where we are. So send them out to a place where they'll get more minutes. Bingo. Bring them back, better players, better into the first team, or we can sell them for a profit. That is what I've seen from these two players. And that hasn't happened, has it? Because I think we've made a fundamental error. Like, I know Joseph started a bit for Mallorca so far this season, but quite quickly he's come out of the team, which I thought might happen, if I'm being totally honest. And then he's sort of not found his way back into the team. And Ramazani hasn't actually started a game yet for Valencia. And I know he's been injured and a few other things have happened with Ramazani. But my concern is that what was the point in these loans if they weren't going to play? And have we been a bit too optimistic at the level these two have gone in at? Because for me, Joseph struggled in the Championship last year. And I think La Liga's a number of step-ups on the Championship, in my opinion. It's not just the next step-up, it's a number of step-ups. Because as we know, with the Championship, you go Championship, then you might go sort of Portuguese League, then you might go French League, Serie A, and you work your way up. I'm not saying that the leagues are all worse than the Championship, but it's a number of step-ups to La Liga. And when I saw how he played in the Championship last season, he was rash in front of goal, and he struggled at times, in my opinion. I didn't think his next step was going to be playing in La Liga, personally. I didn't see that. So when Mallorca came in the summer, I was quite surprised. I thought, that's quite a high step. But if you can get playing in La Liga, that's fantastic, because we've got a player that's really valuable then. But the number one priority when you send a player on loan is to play. That's the whole point. What was the point? And this is where I'm concerned at, because why have we done this? And why have we gone for more ambitious loans than we needed? Because especially with Ramazani, like I get it more with Joseph. Get him, he's a young lad. I know Ramazani's young as well, but there's different levels of young. I think Matteo Joseph's more like 20, whereas obviously Ramazani's like 23. But I look at it and I think, was this an error from Leeds United to go in so high? Might be the only level prepared to pay their wages. I can't imagine that they both had been waged on in the Championship, mate. I can't imagine that maybe a different level couldn't have it. But I agree. I think if that could have been a sort of situation. But for me as well, if we're sending them out on loan, just cover a bit of the wages then. But get them going to a place that they're actually going to play. That has got to be a fundamental. And when I look at Joseph and where he should have gone, for me, he probably should have gone back to the Championship. He probably should have done, because I want him to play week in, week out, score goals, get his confidence up, and then bring him back in. That is what I want. I don't want him going to Mallorca and playing 3 games all season, or starting 3 games all season. What is the point? And I do think we've made a mistake on where we sent him out on loan. I really do. And Ramazani, not as much, because Ramazani I get, and I think Ramazani should be going to La Liga. I think he's that good, and we know he's done it in La Liga before with Almeria when we bought him to a certain level. But maybe Valencia wasn't the move for him, because let's be honest, I know obviously Leeds United are a big club, but we've sent him to a massive club in Valencia, a huge club. They're one of the biggest clubs in Spain. Should he have gone to like a Mallorca like Joseph has, or maybe a lower down level club in Spain, just so he got more minutes? Because does it really matter if he plays at Valencia or he plays Mallorca when he plays at Mallorca more? I'm not saying Mallorca would have been the perfect move for him, but there would have been a club in Spain that played in La Liga who would have played Ramazani more so far this season than Valencia has. So I'm just concerned with it, and I think it was a bit daft. Like, it wasn't a mistake we needed to make. Send them to a level that they can actually play at. That's the whole point of a loan. And I really hope Leeds United have not been daft enough, because if you are going to go with an ambitious loan, in my opinion, if you are going to go in an ambitious loan and send them to Valencia when maybe that's like a big step up for Ramazani, if you are going to do that, at least put a recall clause in there where all right, we'll send him to Valencia, but if he doesn't play a certain amount of minutes by January, we get to recall him, and we'll bring him back and we'll send him someone who's actually going to play him. The Leeds United should have done that, and they should have done the same with Matteo Joseph. Every loan clause, every sort of clause that we put, every loan player we sent out, always should have a clause in saying that. There should be a clause in saying, if you don't play an X amount of minutes and get X amount of starts, unless obviously something like an injury happens, you come back to Leeds United and we'll resend you out on loan. Because if we haven't done that, and Ramazani, imagine this as a scenario. Imagine Ramazani goes to loan to Valencia, doesn't play, and we could have had him at Leeds United for this year. What was the point? What was the point? And I don't disagree for me with him actually going out on loan, because if he wasn't going to play, go get him playing. I agree with that. But then don't send him to a place that he don't play. That's the worst thing possible. Because at the moment, all we've done is improve Mallorca's bench. What are we gaining from a loan where he's playing on the bench? Do you know what I mean? I just think it was daft. And it was an easy avoid. Real question with Ramazani is, why is he on loan in the first place? Well, I think he's on loan in the first place, Jaggy Babs. I agree with you in terms of this is a guy with serious pedigree. I do think that. I think he's a player with real quality. And I do think when I look at the fact we've got Aronson playing on the right-hand side, nobody's telling me that Ramazani isn't better than Aronson on the right-hand side and wouldn't offer more of a threat than Brendan Aronson. I know Brendan Aronson offers more in terms of defensively and all that, but in terms of an attacking standpoint, there is no way that Aronson is a better attacker than Ramazani. Not a chance. But it almost doesn't matter what we think, Jaggy Babs. It doesn't matter what the fans' opinion, really. It doesn't matter what the board thinks. It matters, really, what Daniel Farke thinks, because he's the manager and he's the one picking the team. So if Ramazani's going to be left out of squads like we saw in the Arsenal game, if he's not going to play at all, he might as well go out on loan. Because let's be honest, he didn't play much last season, did he? And we're in the Championship last year. So I understood personally why Ramazani going, even though I didn't agree with it, you've got to back your manager. And if your manager's not saying I'm not going to play him, he's got to go out on loan. But at least send him out on loan where he's going to play. It frustrates me, this, because it's just such an easy mistake to not make. There'd have been, honestly, I imagine there'd been loads of clubs in Spain after Ramazani's signature. I don't think we'd have been shot of offers at all. Really frustrating. Jack says, evening, Scott. Evening to you too, Jack. How are the Wales lads getting on, by the way? They're losing. I think they were losing 3-0 last time I checked. Yeah, they're losing 3-0 still. I don't mind that as an England fan, but still, I hope our boys. Ideal scenario tonight. I don't know. Ampadu, Darlow, and sort of Roden have great games, and probably England win. Although I'm not too bothered. But yeah, that is my feeling at this moment in time around the loan situation. I just don't understand it. I don't understand it at all. Anyway, bit of a shorter show today. I thought it would be a long one, actually, but it's been a bit of a quiet show. I think there's obviously a lot of stuff going on with England playing at the moment and that sort of thing as well. But we will be back tomorrow, of course, for an 8 p.m. show. I always love, as you guys know, the 8 p.m. on a Friday show. It just seems to be a better atmosphere. I think everyone's a bit more happy because obviously it's the weekend, and obviously, unfortunately, it's not Leeds United playing, which would be better. But there will be a lot to talk about tomorrow, as always. And it's always, as I said, if there's any show I'd recommend going to each week, I always say get yourself to the Friday show. It's always the best one. It's always the most fun. Anyway, thanks all for watching, as always, and apologies for the sort of bit of a disaster we had at the start with it all crashing out on the mic, deciding it didn't want to work. But, you know, that's technology for you, eh? Anyway, see you all later, everybody. Bye for now. Oh, and subscribe and all that sort of stuff if you could, because I am a small channel, so every like just seems to plummet the channel up. Promote the channel more. So if you could do that, that would be brilliant.